Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something critical for any big cloud move in a business. We're talking about building that solid business case. It's not just tech talk. It's about showing the value to everyone.
Absolutely, yeah. Even the best cloud plans, they can just stall without a strong case behind them. No funding, no momentum. It's really the foundation.
And to help us unpack this, we're leaning on the work of Darren Lester. You might know him as Dasbo. He's a very experienced enterprise cloud architect. His Medium series on Google Cloud adoption is full of practical stuff. And, having worked across so many different IT roles, he gets the real-world enterprise headaches.
Oh, yeah. Dasbo's seen it all. Developer, different kinds of architect roles, now deep in cloud. That perspective is gold. Mm-hmm. He sees it not just as like lifting and shifting servers, but a whole business transformation.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. Pull out the key things you need to build a really compelling business case for cloud using Dasbo's insights. So let's jump in. According to Dasbo, what is a business case fundamentally in this cloud context?
Well, he really stresses that main job is getting that senior buy-in. Securing the investment. It's the doc that shows how moving to the cloud fits with the company's big picture strategy. And crucially, he says strategy drives the case, not the other way around.
That's such a key point. The case justifies a strategy. It doesn't invent it. Okay, so what specific information does Dasbo say needs to be in this document?
He lists quite a few crucial categories. First, what are we going to do?
Right, the actual plan.
Yeah, the specifics. Are we migrating everything to Google Cloud, getting rid of data centers, shutting down mainframes, modernizing apps, ditching on-prem licenses, maybe implementing ZTNA? You need that clear technical North Star.
A clear picture of the technical changes. Got it. What's next?
Then what problems is it going to solve? This is where you hit the pain points, right? Things like roadblocks to innovation, maybe the current IT is just too slow, too rigid, or, the sheer cost of keeping the old stuff running. Highlighting these really gets attention upstairs.
Okay, and how does the case link those solutions back to the company's goals?
That's the next bit. How will it help us achieve our strategy? Here, you explain how the cloud move makes the business more agile, more efficient, innovative, how it makes costs clearer. You're directly connecting the tech stuff to strategic wins.
Makes sense. So we have the what, the why, now the bit everyone really wants to know about, the money.
Ah, yes. Dasbo definitely emphasizes defining the expected return on investment, ROI. We'll dig into quantifying that soon. But he also says to include what other benefits. This captures the, shall we say, the less easily number crunch stuff.
What?
Like agility, scalability, fostering innovation, better security, attracting talent, maybe enabling autonomous deployment. Think about agility, for instance. It means the business can react faster, roll out features quicker, scale up if needed. That's a real competitive edge.
So it's the whole package, not just cost savings. But of course, there are costs involved in making the switch.
Oh, absolutely. The business case has to detail how much is it going to cost. The migration itself, training people, managing the change that comes with it.
And the people needed. The skills.
Yep. That's covered under what resources and skills do we need. Identifying if you need cloud engineers, what trainings is essential, good project management, all that.
Timelines. Always a big one. How does Dasbo suggest handling that?
The case needs timescales. How are we going to phase the work? He gives an example, like a 3-phase approach, maybe 0-12 months for planning, getting set up, then 12-24 months for the heavy lifting, the transition, and maybe 24-36 months for optimizing everything in the cloud. You give a clear roadmap.
That phasing makes it sound less daunting, I suppose. What about the impact on the actual people?
Cover two, what training is required and what organizational change is expected. It acknowledges, you need to upskill people and there'll be shifts in culture, how things operate.
And finally, he mentions looking outwards a bit.
Yeah. Is there an impact on the rest of the portfolio? Basically, recognizing a big cloud project doesn't happen in a vacuum. It'll affect other things going on.
Wow, okay, so that's a really thorough blueprint for a business case. Now, Dasbo actually tried using ChatGPT to draft one. Tell us about that experiment.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. He fed ChatGPT a detailed prompt based on his own cloud strategy checklist, asking it to generate a business case with specific sections.
Okay, and how did the AI do?
It came back with sections like opportunity problem statement, strategic goals, benefits, costs, resources, timescales, org impact, risks, conclusion. Pretty comprehensive structure.
That sounds surprisingly decent for an AI-generated draft. What was Dasbo's take?
He called it a pretty good start. It hit the main points, but and this is key, he said it lacked specificity, and more importantly, the hard numbers, the quantification you need for a real enterprise case.
Right, that's the difference, isn't it? A general outline versus something that actually convinces finance. Which leads us neatly into quantification and specificity. Why is getting the numbers so vital?
Well, Dasbo really hammers this home. The qualitative benefits, agility, innovation, they sound great, they paint a nice picture. But it's the numbers, the quantification, that actually prove the value. That shows the ROI. That's what grabs the CFO's attention. Appealing ideas are nice, but numbers get budgets approved.
He even had some funny examples of those appealing but not quantified benefits, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like the CTO loves hearing about ditching data centers and faster app delivery. The CSO gets excited about zero trust network access, ZTNA. The chief data officer likes the idea of real-time data insights. The CFO likes cost transparency, but without numbers. They're just nice ideas. He tells a story about a CSO wanting more firewalls instead of ZTNA because the value wasn't clear without the numbers. It shows you can't assume everyone sees the benefit immediately.
So how do we get beyond just saying agility and actually put a number on it? How does Dasbo suggest quantifying agility or pace?
He takes a really practical route. Compare timelines. How long does it take to do key infrastructure tasks the old way, on-prem versus in the cloud? This shift in how you build infrastructure leads directly to faster projects, which has real financial impact.
Can you give us some of the specific comparisons he makes?
Sure. Take going from a high-level design to a detailed low-level one, and then building it. On-prem, he says that design stage alone can take weeks, often with errors creeping in. In Google Cloud, using infrastructure as code like Terraform, where you define infrastructure and code for automation, that LLD often becomes the implementation. It takes days, not weeks.
Okay, that's a significant saving just there. What about building the actual environments, dev, test, prod?
That's where it gets even more stark. Building that first environment on-prem. Multiple teams, handoffs, maybe takes a month, often with bugs because it doesn't quite match the design.
Yeah.
In the cloud, with your infrastructure as code ready, the app team and platform team can often spin up everything under the app in minutes.
Minutes versus a month, wow. And building more environments like test or staging.
On-prem, often manual, inconsistent, takes ages to fix. In the cloud, rerun the code. Consistent environments, again, in minutes. Fixes applied everywhere automatically. He reckons maybe 6 weeks for 3 non-prod environments on-prem versus minutes each in the cloud.
And that consistency must save a lot of headaches down the line. What about production and DR environments?
On-prem, you've got hardware procurement, POs, loads of change control bureaucracy, adds maybe another month. In the cloud, capacity's there, no procurement delays, change management is simpler. Dasbo estimates maybe 2 weeks instead of a month, conservatively.
So adding all that up, what's the bottom line impact on project timelines?
His conservative estimate. Cloud can cut the infrastructure work on the critical path from maybe 3 months down to just 1. That could mean projects finishing 2 months earlier. That's a huge boost to agility, and that's real business value.
Yeah, that's a number businesses understand. Okay, let's switch gears to another big cost, hosting. How does Dasbo suggest quantifying those savings?
He suggests a top-down approach. First, figure out your total on-prem hosting cost over, say, 3 or 5 years. Then estimate what the equivalent would cost in your target cloud setup. And finally, add in the migration costs. Your potential ROI is then the difference between staying put versus the cloud costs plus migration. So for you listening, if you've got a lot of servers, this calculation is key for your case.
What kind of on-prem costs should people be looking for?
Oh, it's a long list. Data center space, power, cooling, physical servers, maintenance, mainframes, the hardware, support, licenses, storage area networks, backups, network gear, firewalls, then VMware licenses, OS licenses, database licenses, think Oracle, SQL Server middleware licenses, and of course the salaries for all the engineers managing that kit.
It really paints a picture of how complex and costly traditional IT is. Where does Dasbo see the biggest cost-saving opportunities?
He often points to 2 big ones. Getting off the mainframe and getting rid of expensive commercial hosting licenses, especially database licenses. Moving mainframe workloads isn't free in the cloud either, obviously, but ditching those massive license fees, huge potential.
Makes sense. Those enterprise licenses can be crippling. But Dasbo adds some caveats, some challenges, right? It's not always straightforward with vendors.
Definitely not. He warns that even if you use less licensed software, some vendor contracts have clauses, gearing mechanisms. That might mean your per unit cost actually goes up. And getting out of some big enterprise agreements, he specifically mentions Oracle, can be really tough.
So it's not just turn off servers, save money.
Exactly. And staffing, you might need fewer traditional infra engineers, but you'll need cloud engineers. It's more of a skill shift than just cutting headcount. Plus, he mentions cloud elasticity scaling up and down automatically. That saves money compared to on-prem, where you often over-provision for peak loads or test environments that sit idle.
So a complex calculation, not just simple subtraction. Now, Dasbo also talks about using the Google Cloud Migration Center to help estimate costs. How does that tool fit in?
Right, the Migration Center in the Google Cloud Console has different tools for the migration journey. For the business case, the initial estimate part is really useful. It lets you get a quick, high-level estimate of what your target cloud environment might cost to run.
What info do you need to feed it for that initial estimate?
It asks for basics. Your current number of virtual CPUs, vCPUs, and total storage. You could also tell it roughly the split between free OCs like Linux and paid ones like Windows Server. And you set a time frame, maybe 5 years, like in Dasbo's example.
And what does it spit out?
You get a chart showing the estimated running cost of that VM estate migrated to Google Cloud over the time frame you picked. Gives you a visual projection of potential ongoing costs.
What are Dasbo's main takeaways from using that initial estimate? Is it always cheaper?
Interestingly, he points out that just lifting and shifting your VMs might not look dramatically cheaper initially compared to your current compute costs on-prem. But, he stresses, the real savings come after migration. Through modernizing apps to be more cloud-native, right-sizing VMs based on actual usage, and using things like Google Cloud's committed use discounts.
So the initial estimate is just the start of the savings journey.
Exactly. And he repeats, the savings from ditching those commercial hosting licenses, like Oracle, can be absolutely massive. So even though that first estimate doesn't cover everything, like maybe replatforming a mainframe app or using cloud databases, it still shows the potential prize is huge.
Okay, so the Migration Center helps quantify ongoing hosting costs. What about project IT costs? Beyond just the infrastructure pieces.
Dasbo sees project cost reduction coming from two angles combined. One is the lower per unit infrastructure cost we talked about. The other is the shorter project duration because you're more agile.
Can you put a number on that? How does he illustrate it?
Yeah, he gives a good example. Say an average project gets shorter by 40 working days.
Yeah.
And you have a 10-person team costing, say, £500 per person per day. That's £200,000 saved per project just on people's time. That really shows the financial clout of agility. He does warn, though, be careful not to double count. Don't claim savings for infrastructure and the same savings again for shorter project time if they're intrinsically linked.
That's a really important point. Keep the numbers clean. Does he offer any other general tips for quantification?
Yes, definitely. Be conservative. Don't overestimate savings. It's better to underpromise and overdeliver. Avoid that double counting trap. And importantly, factor in the costs of upskilling your own teams or bringing in external cloud and recent experts. Partnering can actually save money in the long run through speed, best practices, and getting your team skilled up faster.
Right. Investing in expertise pays off. Okay, finally, Dasbo wraps up with a pretty comprehensive list of potential benefits to pack into that business case. It covers a lot of ground.
It really does. It's a great checklist. Things like commercial license cost avoidance, using open source instead. Getting rid of hardware purchasing and maintenance costs. Shifting from big upfront capital spending, CapEx, to pay-as-you-go operational spending, OpEx. Getting much better visibility and attribution of costs, knowing who's spending what.
What else is on there?
Auto-scaling, only paying for what you use. Less time spent on boring infra maintenance. The reduction in average project time and cost we discussed. Better availability, faster incident response. Being able to attract and retain tech talent, that's a big one now. Reducing reliance on niche, maybe faithing legacy skills.
I could go on.
Talent retention and support teams by adopting SRE practices, site reliability engineering, eliminating data center costs, or maybe just moving to cheaper colo, getting rid of physical network and security appliances potentially, mainframe cost elimination, if that's relevant. Also, the strategic benefits of sorting out your data, breaking down silos, reducing duplication, better access, lower breach risk, ZTNA benefits like killing VPN or VDI costs, maybe even enabling bring your own device, BYOD.
Wow. That list really drives home just how many different angles cloud adoption can impact positively. So, pulling it all together, what's the main takeaway from Dasbo on crafting that winning business case?
I think the core idea is you need both sides of the coin. You absolutely need the qualitative story, how this aligns with strategy, the vision, but crucially, you need the hard quantitative evidence, the numbers that show the tangible financial and operational upside. It's that combination that's really compelling.
And his insights, including using tools like the Migration Center, give a really practical path to building that case.
Yeah, it's very actionable stuff. It helps organizations build that data back to argument that speaks to all the different stakeholders involved.
So for you listening, as you think about your own cloud journey, maybe look beyond just the immediate cost savings. Think about what entirely new business models or opportunities might open up because of the speed and innovation the cloud allows. What new possibilities could it unlock for your organization? That's certainly food for thought. And definitely check out Dasbo's Medium series for more detail. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.